6 months had passed since Andrew and Amanda's wedding. Their life seemed perfect on the surface, but beneath the calm exterior, tensions were brewing. One evening, as Andrew returned home from work, he found Amanda pacing nervously in their living room. "Andrew, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. Andrew's heart sank. He knew that tone. "What's wrong, Amanda?" Amanda took a deep breath. I think someone's been following me." Andrew's brow furrowed. "Following you? What do you mean?" "For the past week, I've noticed a black car parked across the street. It's always there when I leave the house, and it follows me wherever I go." Andrew tried to reassure her. "Maybe it's just a coincidence. Are you sure it's the same car?" Amanda nodded vigorously. "I'm positive. I even wrote down the license plate. It's the same one every time." Andrew's concern grew. He walked to the window and peered out, scanning the street. Sure enough, a black sedan was parked about 100 yards away. "Have you seen who's inside?" he asked. Amanda shook her head. "The windows are tinted. I can't see anything." Andrew pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police. This isn't right." As Andrew dialed, Amanda grabbed his arm. "Wait. What if it's someone from my past, someone who recognized me from the streets?" Andrew paused, his finger hovering over the call button. "What are you talking about?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "There's something I never told you about my life before we met." Before she could continue, there was a loud knock at the door. They both froze. "Were you expecting anyone?" Andrew whispered. Amanda shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Andrew motioned for Amanda to stay back as he approached the door. He looked through the peephole and saw a man in a suit standing outside. "Who is it?" Andrew called out. "Mr. Thompson, this is Detective Harris. I need to speak with you and your wife urgently." Andrew hesitated, then slowly opened the door. The detective showed his badge, his expression grim. "May I come in?" he asked. Andrew nodded, stepping aside to let him enter. Amanda stood in the corner, visibly shaken. Detective Harris looked at them both. "I'm afraid I have some disturbing news. Mrs. Thompson, your fingerprints were found at a crime scene last week. Can you explain that?" Amanda's face went pale. "What? That's impossible. I haven't done anything wrong." Andrew stepped between Amanda and the detective. "There must be some mistake. My wife hasn't been involved in any crimes." Detective Harris pulled out a tablet and showed them a photo. It was a dilapidated warehouse, cordoned off with police tape. "Do you recognize this place, Mrs. Thompson?" he asked. Amanda's eyes widened in recognition, but she quickly composed herself. "No, I've never seen it before." The detective raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" "Because we have surveillance footage of someone who looks remarkably like you, entering this building the night of the incident." Andrew turned to Amanda, confusion written all over his face. "Amanda, what's going on?" Amanda's lower lip trembled. I can explain." Detective Harris interrupted. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to need you to come down to the station for questioning." Andrew stepped in. "Not without a lawyer. We're not saying anything more until we have legal representation." The detective nodded. "That's your right. But I strongly advise you to cooperate. This is a serious matter." After the detective left, Andrew turned to Amanda, his voice low and controlled. "Amanda, tell me the truth. What's really going on?" Amanda collapsed onto the couch, her head in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Andrew. I never meant for any of this to happen." "What are you talking about? What didn't you mean to happen?" Amanda looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "Remember when I told you I was an orphan? That wasn't entirely true." Andrew felt his world tilting. "What do you mean?" "My parents, they're alive, but they're not good people, Andrew. They're criminals. I ran away when I was 16 to escape that life." Andrew sat down heavily. "Go on." Amanda took a shaky breath. "Last week, my father contacted me. He said he needed my help with one last job. He threatened to expose my past if I didn't cooperate." "And you agreed?" Andrew asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Amanda nodded miserably. "I thought if I did this one thing, he'd leave us alone forever. I never imagined it would lead to this." Andrew stood up, running his hands through his hair. "I can't believe this. All this time you've been lying to me." I'm sorry, Andrew. I was scared. I thought if you knew the truth about my family, you wouldn't want me anymore. Andrew paced the room, his mind racing. We need to call my father. He needs to know what's happening. Amanda grabbed his arm. No, please, Andrew. If your family finds out, they'll never forgive me. We can handle this ourselves. Andrew shook his head. This is bigger than us now, Amanda. We need help. Just then, Andrew's phone rang. It was his father. Son, turn on the news, now. Andrew fumbled for the remote and switched on the TV. His heart sank as he saw Amanda's face plastered across the screen. The headline read, CEO's wife wanted for questioning in $1 million heist. Amanda let out a choked sob. Oh God, what have I done? Andrew's father's voice came through the phone, sharp and angry. Andrew, what the hell is going on? Is this true? Andrew struggled to find words. Dad, it's complicated. We're trying to figure it out. Figure it out? Son, this is a disaster. Do you have any idea what this will do to the company's reputation? Andrew felt a surge of defensiveness. Dad, Amanda's in trouble. That's more important than the company right now. His father's voice grew cold. Is it? Remember what I told you when I handed over the company? Your decisions affect more than just you now. The line went dead. Andrew stared at the phone, then at Amanda, who was watching the news with horror. We need to leave, Andrew said suddenly. Amanda looked up, confused. What? We need to get out of here. Now pack a bag, just essentials. But where will we go? Andrew was already moving, pulling out suitcases. I don't know yet. But we can't stay here. It's not safe. As they hurriedly packed, there was another knock at the door. They both froze. Mr. Thompson, this is the police. We have a warrant for your wife's arrest. Open the door. Andrew grabbed Amanda's hand. The back door, now. They slipped out just as they heard the front door being broken down. They ran to the garage, jumped into Andrew's car, and sped off into the night. As they drove, Amanda's phone buzzed with a text. She looked at it, her face growing even paler. It's from my father, she whispered. He says he can help us disappear, but we have to meet him. Andrew gripped the steering wheel tighter. No way, we can't trust him. What choice do we have, Andrew? The police are after us. Your family will never understand. We're alone. Andrew was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Where does he want to meet? An hour later, they pulled up to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. A figure stepped out of the shadows, a man in his 60s with hard eyes and a cruel smile. Hello, Amanda, he said. It's been a long time. Amanda stepped forward, her voice shaking. Hello, Dad. Andrew stood beside her, eyeing the man warily. Mr. Carter, I presume? Amanda's father ignored Andrew, focusing on his daughter. You've made quite a mess, haven't you? Lucky for you, your old man still has some tricks up his sleeve. Can you really help us? Amanda asked. Her father nodded. I can make you disappear. New identities, new lives. But it'll cost you. Andrew stepped forward. How much? Mr. Carter's eyes gleamed. Everything you have, your money, your company shares, everything. Andrew felt his stomach drop. That's insane. I can't just hand over the company. Then I guess you'd better get used to prison food, Mr. Carter sneered. Amanda turned to Andrew, her eyes pleading. Andrew, please, we don't have a choice. Andrew looked between Amanda and her father, his mind racing. Everything he'd worked for, everything his family had built. Could he really give it all up? Before he could answer, the warehouse was suddenly flooded with light. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. You led them here, Mr. Carter snarled, reaching into his jacket. Andrew grabbed Amanda and ducked behind a stack of crates just as gunshots rang out. They heard shouts and more gunfire, then silence. When they peered out, they saw Mr. Carter on the ground, surrounded by police officers. Detective Harris approached them, his gun drawn. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, come out with your hands up. Andrew and Amanda slowly stood, their hands raised. Detective, Andrew said, there's been a huge misunderstanding. We can explain everything. Detective Harris holstered his weapon. I'm sure you can, and you'll have plenty of time to do that down at the station. As they were led to the police cars, Andrew caught sight of his father standing near the warehouse entrance, his face a mask of disappointment and anger. "Dad," Andrew called out, "I can fix this. I promise." His father just shook his head and turned away. In the back of the police car, Amanda leaned her head on Andrew's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Andrew. This is all my fault." Andrew took her hand. "We're in this together, remember? For better or worse." As the police car pulled away, neither of them noticed the black sedan that had been following them, now parked in the shadows. Inside, a figure watched them go, then picked up a phone. "It's done," the person said. "They took the bait. Phase 2 can begin." The car started up and disappeared into the night, carrying with it the promise of more trouble to come. At the police station, Andrew and Amanda were separated for questioning. Andrew sat in a cold interrogation room, his mind racing with everything that had happened. Detective Harris entered, carrying a thick file. "Mr. Thompson, you're in a world of trouble. But I think we both know there's more to this story than meets the eye." Andrew leaned forward. "Detective, I swear I had no idea about any of this until tonight. My wife, she's been hiding things from me." The detective nodded. "We figured as much. But here's what I don't understand. Why run? Why not come to us?" Andrew sighed. "I panicked. I thought I could protect her." "Protect her from what, exactly?" Andrew hesitated, then decided to come clean. He told the detective everything about Amanda's past, her father's threats, the supposed heist. Detective Harris listened intently, occasionally making notes. When Andrew finished, the detective leaned back in his chair. "That's quite a story, Mr. Thompson. But here's the thing. We've been investigating Amanda's father for years. He's small-time, not capable of pulling off anything like what you're describing." Andrew frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone's playing you, both of you, and I think I know who." Before he could elaborate, there was a commotion outside. The door burst open and Andrew's father stormed in, followed by a team of lawyers. "This interview is over," his father declared. "My son isn't saying another word without counsel present." Detective Harris stood up. "Mr. Thompson, I strongly advise you to reconsider. Your son could be in real danger." Andrew's father waved him off. "The only danger here is to my family's reputation. We're leaving, now." As they left the station, Andrew tried to talk to his father. "Dad, you don't understand. Amanda's in trouble. We need to help her." His father rounded on him, his voice low and angry. "Help her? That woman has nearly destroyed everything we've built.